Can I invite everyone at the back of the room to take a seat? We are about to get started. Sound okay? Yeah. Echoey? Okay, we are going to get started, everyone. Ministers, members of Parliament, mayors, councillors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Richmond Football Club for tonight's Inner Metro Region Metropolitan Assembly for 2018. The Inner Metro Partnership is one of 6 metropolitan partnerships established by the Victorian Government, recognising that local communities are in the best position to understand the challenges and opportunities faced by their region and by their people. My name is Amy Hubbard and I am your MC for the evening. My job is to keep us focused, on time and facilitate a conversation focused on your insights and ideas for this region. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respect to their elders past, present and future. Tonight we have an opportunity to learn from the 2017 Assembly and Partnership, and the partnership assisted in delivering outcomes for your region, and also to add your thoughts and play a direct role in setting priorities for action. So we do have a full agenda in front of us. But before we get into the evening, it would be nice to know who's in the room. There are a lot of familiar faces. At these types of forums, sometimes it can feel like a bit of a reunion. So who's here from local government, either a councillor or a council officer? Just to get a big show of hands. Okay, there's a fair contingent of local government representatives here. All right, who's here from state government? And you can be a table host or table scribe. So lots of state government. Importantly, who's an interested member of the community? Yes, a lot of you are. Good. Who represents business interests in the region? Yep, a few with business interests. Welcome. Who has environmental interests? Arts and, yep, quite a few hands went up the second time then. Arts and culture. What are some of the other interests in the room? Transport. Waste. Energy. Homelessness. Planning and heritage. Youth. Great. Do we have any students in the room? Yeah, good. Welcome. Welcome to the students. And we also have our elected members with us tonight. We have ministers in the room, we have mayors, but I would like to welcome everyone to this forum, and we've got an exciting couple of hours together. So if you need any assistance, I have a team of people with me that are here to support all participants in the room, because we want to make sure that you feel comfortable, you're fed, you have water, you know where things are. My team includes Jacob at the back of the room, if you need help from Jacob, or Denise, or Cole in the corner. We are here for you. So anything you need, not anything, but most things, we can probably help you out with. So in terms of the proceedings for tonight, we will welcome with introduction from the Partnership Chair, Tony Keenan, who will provide a bit of context to why we're here in 2018. Then we're going to hear from Minister D'Ambrosio, the Minister for Suburban Development. And then we've got some youth representatives in the room from University High who are going to provide a bit of an overview of a forum that they attended about the future of the region. The second part of the evening is going to be quite full, and it's about you. So the second and third parts. So get ready. You're going to be involved in some great conversations. You're going to meet some people, new people, maybe catch up with some old friends as well. In terms of housekeeping, we've got bathrooms around the corner to the right. You'll see some lifts, they're just near the lifts. If you have a mobile phone, can you please turn it on silent? You could even take it off the table if you like. Be wary of some cables that are around the room. We don't want anyone tripping over. Tea, coffee, light refreshments will be served all evening. We'll have a break at around 7:10 and we'll get you out of here at about 8:30. I would also like to extend a special hello and welcome to community members who are participating in this assembly online. They're viewing the proceedings through engage.vic, and they'll be able to participate in online forums with other people who are participating online with us tonight. So a special welcome to them. Now I need to ask a question. Who barracks for Richmond? Who are those people? Okay, all right. All right, so let's get started. So to reflect on 2017, to look forward and into setting the challenge for tonight, it now gives me great pleasure to introduce Tony Keenan, who is the chair of the Inner Metropolitan Partnership.
Thanks, Amy, and welcome everyone. I too would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land, the Wurundjeri people on which we meet, and pay my respects to the elders, past and present, and emerging elders. A special welcome to our honoured guests, the Honourable Lily D'Ambrosio, Minister for Suburban Development, Leader of the Government Legislative Council, Special Minister of State and Member for South Eastern Metropolitan Region, the Honourable Gavin Jennings, Minister for Women, Prevention of Family Violence, Aboriginal Affairs and Industrial Relations, the Honourable Natalie Hutchins, Minister for Planning, Member for Richmond, the Honourable Richard Wynne, Minister for Family and Children, the Honourable Jenny Mikakis, Mr John Bradley, Secretary of the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, Lord Mayor Sally Capp, Welcome, Sally, you're first. Daniel Nguyen, I think the Mayor of Yarra, I think Daniel, it's your first as Mayor. And Deputy Mayor Dick Gross. Dick, you were here last year, I remember, so welcome back. You're unforgettable, Dick. Look, I'd love to thank everyone for coming along last year. I mean, I bravely stood up here last year and pretended we knew what we were doing. And we really were it was an experiment in democracy, in citizen-based work, and in genuinely trying to get grassroots input into priorities. It's a unique opportunity where you have community members, local government and government, but particularly working across those massive, clumsy silos to try and nut out what are the actual priorities for this region. I'd particularly like to welcome, in following that up, the people who are online and participating, which I think is a great thing that we're able to do that. Our task, pretty simply, is to present strategic advice to government based on our knowledge, our experience, data and evidence about the things that are particularly unique to the inner metro region. Those wonderful cities, and I've lived in all three of them, the city of Yarra, the city of Port Phillip, and I'm currently a resident in the city of Melbourne. People here know what a great spot it is to live, but people are also well aware of the challenges that we face in managing the massive growth, in managing sustainability, in managing issues of inclusion, respecting diversity, fairness and sustainability. So in doing that, I'll be quick, but I'd just like to introduce all of the members of the partnership. If I could ask people to stand up as I introduce you. So Deputy Chair of the Inner Metro Partnership and the Executive Director of Property and Sustainability of the University of Melbourne, Ms. Alex Lawler. Alex? Peter McEwen, who's Town Planner, Director of the Australia's First Pride Centre and a sessional member of the planning panels. Ms Cherise Yao, who is Head of Legal Group Insurance at AIA Australia. Cherie. Martin Brennan, who is an Honorary Senior Research Fellow at the Melbourne School of Design, University of Melbourne. Martin. CEO of the City of Yarra, Ms Vijay Vaidinath. CEO of the City of Melbourne, Mr Ben Rimmer. And Peter Smith is an apology, but Kylie is representing Peter from... Thank you, Kylie. And I have two apologies from members who are unable to attend tonight because they're overseas. CEO of Destination Melbourne, Laura Cavallo, and Deputy Secretary in the Commercial Division at the Department of Treasury and Finance, Mr David Webster. I know quite a few of you were here last year, and the top themes that emerged from last year, the central themes were housing and rough sleeping, green infrastructure, energy and sustainability, active transport and accessibility, health and wellbeing of Aboriginal children in the inner metro, innovation and creative economies, and the airport rail link. The input from last year, we did two things. We got input back from you and we tested the priorities that we thought were the priorities for the region. Thankfully, they matched up pretty well. And we've sent that advice to government. Based on that, our advice was the 5 following priority outcomes: a reduction in rough sleeping and an improvement in housing affordability, an improvement in the health and wellbeing of Aboriginal children, a business case for the Fisherman's Bend tram line extension, work to help develop and sponsor innovation and creative economies, and a number of issues to do with environment, including sustainability hub at Fisherman's Bend, active transport and green infrastructure. Shortly we'll hear from Minister Wynne on how the government has responded to that advice. So tonight will be a similar format to last year. Amy will be taking us through it, and we really want to capitalise on this great talent and knowledge that we've got in the room here tonight, and Amy will take us through how we're going to be doing this. Just one other thing, last year we did notice that there was a number of groups not that well represented, in particular young people. So we did hold a youth forum a couple of months ago, which was fantastic. I was fortunate to attend, and we'll be hearing from a representative of that youth forum tonight about what those issues were. Finally, if you haven't already, I'd encourage you, one of the outcomes of this process has been a Pick My Project initiative, which is a $30 million grants program funded in last year's budget, which has enabled communities to nominate and decide on funding priorities in their region. So that's grants of between $20,000 to $200,000 to fund projects that have come up through community members in the region. I know there's been great ideas submitted from members of this community, so I'd encourage everyone to go in and vote on that. So I'll move along because we're running short on time. It gives me great pleasure to welcome and introduce the Minister for Planning, the Honourable Richard Wynne.
Thanks very much, Tony. Can I also start by acknowledging, as is our tradition here in the city of Yarra, that we are on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. Welcome everybody to the Punt Road Oval, home of the mighty Tigers. Not my team, by the way. I'm a Kangaroo, and never mind, maybe next year. The Tigers, without doubt, will win the Premiership this year. And to you, Lord Mayor Sally Capp, who was marching up the stairs with me tonight, outrageously singing the Collingwood theme song, entirely inappropriate again. So thanks, thank you very much, everybody. So the 170 people have come to this, and my colleague Lily tells me that this is the biggest turnout of people for these to a community forum, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. And we all know, pardon me, just how important the inner city is to us. You've got here my ministerial colleagues that Tony has already introduced. We'll be here, and the opportunity will be obviously available for people to come and have a yarn with us during the break that we have, I think, a bit after 7 o'clock tonight. So we are here and ready to listen to you. It is appropriate that I do acknowledge our local government colleagues who are here tonight. Obviously, our pretty freshly minted new Lord Mayor, Sally Capp. We welcome you, Sally. It would be remiss of me not to acknowledge my own Mayor, Daniel Nguyen. I can't see you there, Daniel, but oh, he's down the back. Daniel, welcome. Good to see you. And a bloke who doesn't need too much introduction because he's a very shy and retiring fellow, a bloke called Dick Gross. Have a look at him there, will you? And fair dinkum, Dick. It's sad, isn't it? It is sad. Jennifer Canis is with us tonight, our candidate for Melbourne, and we welcome her as well. So tonight, at this inner metropolitan partnership, we have an opportunity to further discuss what we need to help sustain the growth and development of Melbourne's great inner suburbs. We're not biased here, but this is the place to be. Melbourne, of course, as we know, Melbourne Metropolitan Area is a city of more than 320 suburbs. Each one is very unique with its own history, character, and of course its own community feel. And these suburbs are the drivers of our sustainability, livability, and indeed our prosperity. And there's no doubt that Melbourne's inner suburbs have a unique place and a significant role to play in the fabric of Melbourne and present their own opportunities and indeed challenges as well. And of course, as an inner city Member of Parliament, of course you'd expect me to say that, but it is true. The inner metropolitan region extends from the Flemington Racecourse and Kensington to the coastline of Port Phillip Bay, between Port Melbourne and Elwood, and includes the historic inner city areas Carlton, Clifton Hill, Fairfield, Fitzroy. I mean, I don't need to name them all. They are all fantastic areas. The region, of course, covers the municipalities of Melbourne, Port Phillip and Yarra, with a population of about 350,000 people. And what's interesting is that young people aged between 15 and 29 make up the largest share of the population at around 35%. So more than a third of our population in 2016 was between 15 and 29 years of age. The region, as we know, has diverse employment driven by education, professional and scientific services, financial services, health and social services, and of course, public administration as well. Growth within the region will focus on a mix of major urban renewal precincts, including, of course, Docklands, which we know is still yet to be built out, with about 20% still to go. Fisherman's Bend, which presents its own set of challenges, and I know last time around there was an important conversation that we had here, particularly around how we link the city to Fisherman's Bend, and the amazing opportunities that are offered to us just to the north of the city at Arden and Macaulay, where I had the opportunity to launch that with a framework plan for Arden and Macaulay with my colleague Jacinta Allen and of course the Lord Mayor. So a variety of job opportunities attract diverse people to live, work and study in our region, along with the natural environment, of course, including the Yarra River and the great protections that we've put in place, working very closely with the Wurundjeri people and indeed my colleague, the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, to protect the Yarra River, Port Phillip Bay, and of course our beautiful parks and gardens. I mean, we are extraordinarily blessed here in the inner city. The growth of the region, though, needs to be managed so that the benefits are harnessed, so that our region can continue to thrive. And there's communities obviously understand better than anyone the dynamic characteristics of this area and the unique challenges planning ahead for each one. And that's why the government obviously established the Metropolitan Partnership to ensure that our suburbs remain the great places that we know and enjoy. So for those of you who attended last year's Assembly, you would be aware that the partnerships are a new way for local communities to engage directly with state and local government and of course advise the Victorian Government on the priorities for this region. And the partnership has been appointed for 4 years, and each year the partnership submits its independent advice to government through the Minister for Suburban Development, Lily D'Ambrosio, and about priorities for jobs, services and infrastructure across the region. And before submitting the advice, the partnership holds an annual assembly, which is what we're doing tonight, to understand what is most important to the people who actually live here and work here as well. And your input tonight will inform the partnership's 2018 advice to government. I'd like to take the opportunity particularly to thank all of you who have come together and the hard work that has brought this forum together. In September 2017, as Tony indicated, we held the first Inner Metro Assembly. And on that occasion, about 140 community members, business reps, elected councillors and community groups came to the Assembly. What the 2017 Assembly demonstrated is that whilst we may have different views about how we get there, we clearly knew what the priorities were. The 2017 Assembly and subsequent advice to government identified a range of these, and I'll just take you briefly through them. Additional support for people sleeping rough and increasing the supply of affordable housing. Certainly at the last event, this was very much a priority as I worked my way around the tables. Improved health and wellbeing, safety and educational outcomes for Aboriginal children. Connectivity to urban renewal areas to stimulate economic activity. Enhancement of places for local innovation and creative economies. And finally, safeguarding our environment, including through the development of a sustainable hub at Fisherman's Bend and planning for green infrastructure. So the government has committed to work with the partnership on progressing all of these priority outcomes. So let me just take you briefly through them. The government is investing, rough sleeping and housing affordability. So the government is investing to provide housing and support for those sleeping rough, with $27.7 million for after-hours crisis response for the victims of family violence to meet growing demand for their services across the metropolitan region and particularly within the inner metro region. an additional $26.1 million for implementing the Rough Sleeping Action Plan across the state, announced in January 2018, and that plan provides a framework for reducing the incidence and effects of rough sleeping in Victoria. Funding initiatives to support the partnership priorities include $9 million for 6 supportive housing teams, including 2 teams in the inner metropolitan region, and $4.5 million of funding dedicated to the reform of adult crisis accommodation in the inner metropolitan region. And the Victorian Government is also investing $1 billion, I'll say that again, $1 billion in the Social Housing Growth Fund, which will support up to 2,200 new social housing places over the next 5 years. And in my own area, an inclusionary housing pilot to provide affordable homes for vulnerable Victorians with one, with one of the 6 sites selected in Parkville. In relation to Aboriginal children, the government is working to improve outcomes for Aboriginal children through a $47.3 million support program for Aboriginal children and family agreements. Identification of existing Aboriginal participation and implementation of a range of strategies to promote participation of Koori children in early childhood education. And I know my colleague, Minister Makakos, has indicated that very, very strong outcomes in terms of the participation of young Aboriginal children, particularly in kindergarten, and that is, I think, a really significant program that we ought to acknowledge and celebrate. In terms of Fisherman's Bend, well, as you know, this is a project near and dear to my heart, with many challenges for government going forward. The big issue that was raised last time at our last forum was the interconnectivity between the CBD and Fisherman's Bend, obviously through the tram line. The government will be working with the partnership to use $1 million for planning for the business case development and exploration of options to extend the tram line to Fisherman's Bend. And I'm delighted to say that the Minister D'Ambrosio, in fact, today, announced funding for a business case for the Fisherman's Bend Sustainability Hub, which I know was a really important initiative that people were very keen to see progressed. In relation to Fisherman's Bend, also I should indicate that the government has received the panel report in relation to what the future planning framework should look like for Fisherman's Bend, and that particularly will address questions about both the built form but also issues around public transport routes in and out of Fisherman's Bend, and also critically public open space as well. But the strategic work that the government has done, particularly in terms of buying the GMH site as a major employment hub for Fisherman's Bend, is absolutely fundamental to the future of Fisherman's Bend. And we know already that Melbourne University itself has indicated really its very significant support by the announcement of moving its engineering school down to Fisherman's Bend. Speaks, I think, of the enormous potential that that particular precinct offers for our inner city more generally. Innovation and creative economies, and the government obviously supports the identification and growth of creative spaces in the metropolitan region, and we are working with the partnership over the next 6 months to identify opportunities for further support and activation. I simply point people to the amazing innovation hubs that frankly are organically actually growing up themselves in parts of Richmond and Collingwood, Kensington itself, the Young Husbands site over in Kensington, just amazing opportunities. Cremorne itself is just quite extraordinary. So I may well have a bit more to say about some further encouragement that we will be providing to these innovation hubs in the next few weeks as well. Just briefly and quickly, in terms of the environment, to round out the report card, The government supports the identification of investment for resource recovery and sustainability, which of course is in Minister D'Ambrosio's area, and a $37 million recycling industry strategic plan has been released to strengthen Victoria's recycling industry, bringing the government's investment in statewide waste and resource recovery initiatives to more than $100 million over the last 4 years. And it also includes funding for a business case to investigate the feasibility of establishing, obviously, as Lily has already announced, a sustainability hub at Fisherman's Bend. A green infrastructure workshop has been held with state and local government as well as researchers and academics to progress the partnership's priority to coordinate the delivery of green infrastructure. And finally, active transport was another key priority of last year. And the Victorian Cycling Strategy 2018 to 2028 will guide planning and investment over the next decade to seek a safer, lower stress, better connected cycling network. So that's a small thumbnail sketch of how the government has responded to the partnership priorities last year. I thought it was a fantastic conversation that we actually had, where I think both state government and local government was actually listening to what the community was really trying to say to us, and I think in a very deep way and in a way that was very respectful of that conversation. And I think where we are and the way that we have responded to date is a first step for us, and we very much look forward to tonight's conversation really shaping further how the response comes back to government in September of this year. Thank you all so much. Nearly 170 of you here tonight. Many of you I've known for a very, very long time. Many of you have been great community activists and friends of the inner city. I know how passionately we all regard the inner city. It is the best place to live, and I look forward to tonight's conversation. Thank you so much.
And I would like to apologise, I got my ministers confused, and we'll be hearing from Minister D'Ambrosio later in the forum. So now, there are a couple of students that are about to take the stage, and I don't know who you are or where you are. I know you're called Val and Ralph. Are you here? You are. Yeah, come. So, to maximise engaging with the younger people of the region, there was a youth forum was held at the State Library early this year. Now, Ralph, you are Ralph, you're not Val?
Yes, Val and the other one kind of decided it's not right. So,
oh my gosh. How are you feeling?
I was a bit stressed before, but I think I'm good now.
Okay, come on over. All right, and you're from University High?
Yeah, Uni High. Yeah.
Okay, so if you need anything, we're all here to support you. So I'm going to hand over the microphone,
Sure.
And then there'll be a short video that will be played. So
Awesome.
over to you.
I'm Ralph, as everyone knows now, but I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of this land, so the elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge the ministers, mayors, and councillors of the Inner Metro region who are here tonight, and the members of the Inner Metropolitan Partnership. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to thank the Premiership-winning Richmond Football Club for allowing us to be in the heart of Tigerland country. So on Monday, 7th May, I attended the Metropolitan Partnership Youth Forum, and as a representative from University High, the event was held at the State Library. Tony was there, and 120 other students were there as well. So myself, representing the Inner Metro region. So there were a range of schools. There was University High, Albert Park College, Elwood College, and William Angus Institute, who are representing the Inner Metro region. And having these range of schools there from the different parts of the Inner Metro region it made it a great event. And there was a lot of ideas shared. There was so much energy in the room. And I feel like everyone came there with something to say, and it affects our lives. So everyone was there to say something. So just kind of a brief overview of what we talked about. So we kicked off the conversation with Melbourne's livability and how it felt to be in and around Melbourne. And then following on from that, there was like a table discussion on Melbourne's challenges, focusing on how we as young people are affected by what we hear, what we see, and what we feel. After that, we had a general meeting with all the other regions, and we were kind of split off into our regions. So in the metro, and the other regions had their groups. So I was with Tony and some other peers and some friends. So in the breakout session, we discussed things that we found exciting and new, and like things that we love, and also things that we found frustrating. And so when we were discussing this, we discussed things like what we love, as I just said, and what we find that we love is that the diversity of people and cultures in the community, the availability of public meeting places such as parks and the state library, and the diverse opportunities for employment. But when we discussed what was frustrating, and this is kind of getting important to kind of finding what we can improve about Melbourne, was expensive housing, waste and pollution, the lack of open spaces. Those were just some of the areas that we could improve on. We would definitely like to see inner city housing affordability for youth in the future. Things like managing the environment for greener and more open public spaces. We believe that these would have a positive impact on the inner city region. So after we discussed what we loved and found frustrating about the city, we kind of narrowed everything down to 3 main things. And by doing that, we kind of isolated these 3 regions, and it was the 3 things we talked about was rough sleeping and housing affordability, as we talked about just then, cycling and pedestrian safety, and one that really stood out and everyone was really concerned and talking about this a lot was mental health. And that's a conversation we need to have. I feel like it's being avoided personally, but it's something that really needs to be paid attention to. So that's basically all we talked about. It was a great opportunity for us to kind of meet each other, kind of get to the government, and hopefully them hearing what we're trying to say, and to kind of see what we're hearing, seeing, and feeling about our region in the inner city. So that's about it. Thank you very much for listening, guys. I think there's a video soon, so.
I suppose livable Melbourne is one where people are able to not just have a healthy life and sustain themselves economically, but also be happy where they live and enjoy living in the city, in the suburb where they live.
The thing I'm looking forward to most about today is, firstly, rejecting the idea that some people have that young people aren't interested in politics or in being engaged. Just looking around this room, we've got an incredibly energised, engaged group of young people who clearly want to have their say.
I think a lot of us sort of share similar opinions on those issues of safety, affordability, access, decentralisation, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's really cool that a lot of us are in touch with the same issues and we can really relate to each other.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ralph, and thank you for coming up here solo. Really impressive. So on your tables, you have a hand device. The hand device is called Lumi. If you just want to pick it up, have a look at it. Your table host will be able to describe the purpose of the Lumi, but basically it will allow you to vote during tonight's forum. Some of you have probably seen them before or something similar before. So if you just all pick them up, and if the table host can just basically point out the main buttons to the participants at the table. So just to make sure that the technology is working, we've got a question that you can probably already guess. Can I just grab your attention, please? Thank you. Got everyone's... Okay, so our question to you is, who is going to win the 2018 AFL Grand Final? I didn't put this together. I'm just the messenger. So once your Lumi lights up, then you can make your vote. Okay, over 43% Richmond and nearly 16% Collingwood. So Sally's must have a few friends in the room there tonight. Yes, apparently we might need to look at the data in a little bit more detail. You can only vote once. So does anyone need any assistance with their Lumi device? Because if you do, we've got a couple of people on the floor that can help you out. Does everyone have one? Everyone has one and everyone's comfortable. All right, let's move on. So now we've probably talked enough and now it's your opportunity to share your thoughts and ideas at your table. So the 2017 Assembly and the subsequent advice provided by the Inner Metro Partnership to Government and the Government's response, that's what we'll be focusing on. On each table there is an A3 sheet. You've probably already had a good look at it. So there's two columns on the A3 sheet. On the left-hand side is the advice and on the right-hand side is the government's response. So I'd now like to invite you all at your table to review the table of information and collectively respond to the questions. What are your initial reactions to the advice and commitments made since last year? Which of the priority outcomes would you like to see further action in the next year? And if you could add one priority to the advice for 2018, what would it be? You have a table scribe who will document your discussion, and each table will have the opportunity to add an additional priority and build on what's already the good work from 2017. So I'm going to hand over now to the table host to lead you through to this conversation. Excuse me, everyone, I am going to ask you to finish up that conversation. If you have an additional priority, so the scribes at the table, if you've documented an additional priority, please hand it up in the air and we'll come and collect it. To everyone else, we're going to have a short break. You can grab a cup of tea and something to eat at the back of the room, and we'll be reconvening in 5 to 10 minutes. I would like...
Yeah, 1, 2.
I would like to remind everyone that it is break time. We're in break time, you know that? If you want to go on, we are in break time. It is time for a break if you haven't... Okay, can I invite everyone to take a seat? We are going to get started in the next minute or so. If everyone can take a seat at... Can I invite you to take a seat? Have a look at the slides on each side of the stage. Each table now has a dedicated theme. Please join the table. Please join the table with the theme that you are most interested in. Okay, we're going to get started in 1 minute. Please join the table with the theme that you are most interested in. Can I get everyone's attention, please? We're going to get started now. Okay. During the break, we have consolidated your additional priorities, and we will announce those in a second. But this next activity involves you sitting at a table and having a conversation about a focused theme. So those themes are on the slides to my left and my right, and each table has the theme on the table stand in the middle. So if you're not at the table that you would like to focus on for the next activity, please relocate yourself now. So you've got the opportunity to move now if you're not at the right table. Looks like most of you are at the right table. Okay, you look like you've all relocated, or you're in the process of relocating. There's so much energy and excitement in this room tonight. This is amazing and slightly overwhelming. Okay, we have 4 new themes based on the additional priorities that you shared with us from the first activity. So all of the priorities should be up on the slide now. So the additional priorities for the partnership are improving public transport at all hours, mental health crisis support, engagement and inclusion of migrant communities, and managing and protecting the Yarra River. So 4 new themes. So So they're 4 new themes based on the range of comments that we received from the room. So not all additional priorities were put up there. If you need to understand how we got to those 4, my colleague Cole will be very pleased to have a conversation with you. So I'm going to ask you to pick up your Lumi device. And I want you to review the list of priorities on the slides, and we would like you to select your 3 priorities, what you see as the 3 priorities for this region and for this partnership to focus on. The order of the 3 doesn't matter. So over to you. Think about the themes that are up on the slide. They're all numbered on your screen. Your screen will light up when it's ready, and vote when you're ready. I can't hear. I can't hear. You might be able to hear it, but I couldn't hear it. Hang on, I'll just do this. So just to go through the list of priorities, we've got rough sleeping and affordable housing. We've got improved health and wellbeing, safety and educational outcomes for the Aboriginal children. Improve connectivity to urban renewal areas to stimulate economic activity. Retain and enhance places for local innovative and creative economies. Ensure environmental benefits and mitigate environmental impacts. Youth mental health, education and school provision, improving public transport at all hours, mental health crisis support, engagement inclusion of migrant communities, and managing and protecting the Yarra River. And the numbers are just coming in now. Everyone's waiting with anticipation. Okay, the numbers are in. Okay, our top priority. Can I get everyone's attention, please? I know it's all very exciting and there's lots of things to discuss, but can I get everyone's attention? So, the numbers are in. This is especially important for the people at the back of the room because there's no way that you can read this from there. So, rough sleeping and affordable housing, 59%. So that's our top priority from tonight. We have got three at 33%. So, youth mental health, 33%. Improving public transport at all hours, 33%. Engagement and inclusion of migrant communities, 33%. We've also got mental health crisis support at 31%, and we've got ensuring environmental benefits and mitigate environmental impacts at 27%. So if you do want to come and have a look at the numbers, you can. We'll leave them up there for a few minutes. But I'm now going to hand over to your table hosts once again, and I invite you to work with your table host to discuss in detail what is the real issue we can impact, what are the opportunities, and how will we know if we are successful? So 3 key questions at your table. You've got some cards and materials at table to guide your conversation. If you need any additional support, please let us know. So over to you, table hosts. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, welcome to Economy Innovation Startups.
Okay, can I have your attention, please? We are going to finish up the table-based conversations now. Can I get everyone's attention? All right. Okay, I just want to make an observation about the room. I work in community engagement. I am in a community engagement vortex in my life at the moment. Every day I have community engagement activities. This room has more activity and participation than anything I have seen in months. So I'm just going to put that out there, so say congratulations to the person next to you, because sometimes I go to community engagement activities. And as a facilitator, I have to spend 2 hours drawing out an idea. You know, you've all been there, hopefully not as a facilitator, but I just wanted to congratulate you that what an amazing conversation you are having at each and every table tonight, so well done. I've got your attention, that's great, and I now would like to hear back from a couple of the tables. So we've selected some tables just because the theme that they're discussing is a definite priority for this partnership. So we are going to start at table 17. This is a newer priority as identified tonight. So that focus was engagement and inclusion of migrant communities. So we've got a champion from that table that would just like to give us a few insights from the conversation on table 17. And if that champion can also introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Jason, and I live in Docklands, so I'm here in my capacity as a resident. We had a really amazing conversation, and it was fantastic to hear people from migrant backgrounds, myself included, sharing our views. And I think the key things that we talked about was, one, that it's about changing the narrative. That the reality is that we don't like to be treated as a homogenous group, and we are not a homogenous group, which means that the reality of how policy and responses to migrants should not assume that we're all the same, and that they should be perhaps tailored or customized. I think the other issue is also that about speaking with our own voice. And there was a suggestion that we should be looking at more forums where migrant groups are invited to share their views. And it was an interesting point that there were no translators here today. So the question becomes, does that prevent or reduce the opportunities for migrants to have their opportunity to share their own voices? And as an opportunity, we thought that one of the key things was the need for an emergence of role models, because that is very important for young people, particularly, to aspire to. And therefore, that led to a conversation about employment pathways and about ways of demonstrating inclusion and respect that we can start not only on a national level, but within this region through our own employers and the organizations that are here, so that we can see more of our migrant colleagues in positions of worth, positions of employment, positions of success. And I think those would be a very good start. I hope I said what.
Okay, thank you. I'm now going to go down to table 5, who focused on social wellbeing and mental health.
Hello. My name is Tassia and I'm part of, obviously, Table 5. The real issues that we came up with as a group were the community and empathy and connectedness, and how we can all, which also ties into many different topics around the room, and how we can provide programs and how we can provide improve outcomes and access to housing, homelessness, affordability, and how all these things tie into the overall well-being and health issues of a person, and also the common stigma, and also how that's improving as well with people more openly talking about it. We also, the opportunities that we came up with were to provide access to community housing, which are linked to timely wraparound services that address individuals' vulnerability, which tie into homelessness, and also how to deal with those issues coming out of such a hard environment and trying to become part of a community again and working with other people again, and also, you know, because a lot of these issues were compressed during such a hard time, and how to kind of reopen those things again and be open to talk about them again. And we also talked about how there's such a waiting list on, well, housing. There's such a waiting list on psychiatrists, psychologists, also a lot of affordability, not affordable ones there, and how more money can go into giving those companies more opportunity to reach the public.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Table 5. I'd now like to go to Table 18, which focused on public transport. And if you could just introduce yourself.
My name's Harriet, and I'm from. My name's Harriet, and I live in Collingwood, a very well-connected suburb for public transport, but we're passionate about it for a lot of other reasons. We talked a lot about public transport and the different modes of transport, and one thing that I think we came up with was that we really need an integrated transport plan that looks to the future, that we don't do piecemeal things, but we have a plan that will look to the next 10 years, because if we're going to be a city of 8 million by 2050, we really need to start planning and actually building it now, because we're still in catch-up phase. We need improved connectivity in suburban and outer suburban areas, and it's not just a radial connectivity, which we have at the moment, but one that goes across in a circular fashion from areas, either by bus or tram or train, however that might work. We think that it's important to have a more equitable system. At the moment, there are some people in some areas that have an absolutely fantastic public transport experience, and others who have absolutely zero and are forced to get into their cars. And we think we need to reduce car dependency and encourage a greater utilisation of public transport. So we really need to invest in routes and networks now to service the growing population areas, and we need a whole-of-system approach that means that buses, trains and trams actually work together, and frequently they don't. Some of the opportunities we see is improving equity for people of different ages and also in different parts of Melbourne. We think we need to create some love for public transport, and particularly the bus system. The bus system gets knocked a lot, and there's some really simple things that we can do there. And I think we should be prioritising, we thought prioritising public transport over car users on where they share roads is really important. So, for example, trams in the city should be given priority over cars, which they are in some places but not in others. And there was a suggestion that those people who are using the shared cars, the Go-Gets and I don't know what the other one is, they should be able to have free parking. How will we know that we're successful? Well, there'll be less cars on the road, less congestion, hopefully, less need to spend a lot of money on cars that on roads that simply just fill up and become congested again. We'll know that we're successful if we'll have more patronage, and there'll be shorter travel times and improved reliability, and a reduction in the number of cars per household, hopefully, and improved mental and physical health, because people won't be so frustrated sitting behind a car, but will actually be using public transport and interacting with other people and getting to know their community. So I hope I've summed that up reasonably well. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you to all the participants at the table. Your comments, feedback, ideas, reflections have been documented by the scribes. All of that documentation comes to my team, and we then create a report for the partnership. If you have any final ideas or something that you feel like you didn't get to share at your table, either table that you're at, please write it down on a post-it note, add it to the other materials on the table, and that will become part of our reporting as well. We are close to finishing up the session tonight, so we've got one final question for you to use your Lumi device. So our question to you: how satisfied are you with the opportunities tonight to share and discuss the priorities for your region? So very satisfied, satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied, and very dissatisfied. Over to you. Okay. We've got 78% that were either satisfied or very satisfied. 15% of you, neutral, maybe, you know. And then we've got 7% that are either dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. If you're dissatisfied or very dissatisfied, please come and speak to me. We always like to improve our processes, and we'd really love to get your feedback tonight, so please come and speak to me. I would now, though, like to hand back to Tony, the Chair of the Inner Metro Metropolitan Partnership, to provide some reflections and key insights into what you've heard tonight and your next steps. Thanks, Tony.
Okay. I'd just like to echo what the tables I was on, we had fantastic discussions, and the level of energy and enthusiasm in the room was fantastic. So thank you everyone for giving up a night. We will take on board what we've heard. I've been thinking as we do, so I think some of the newer things we can possibly merge into existing themes, particularly say public transport. I think we can merge that in with the environment theme. We're not wanting to have an impossible number of themes to work with, but we also want to respect and take on what we've heard tonight. We had a great discussion at our table. We were talking about affordable housing and social housing. Some really interesting topics, particularly around incentives and to increase the supply of affordable and social housing. One day we will get a proper inclusionary zoning scheme, and we'll keep on working on that. That was a big one that came up last year. And it's great that there's going to be a pilot of inclusionary zoning in the next year or so. But also the other thing was the need to engage with and put people who are homeless or experiencing homelessness at the centre of responses. All of your input's been captured tonight, and we look very much forward to receiving the full report of what's been discussed. Following tonight, the report will be emailed to everyone here tonight, and it will also be made available online. And from here, the partnership will review what you've told us and start developing our advice to government. We'll continue to work with government and other stakeholders to progress these priorities and are committed to work with you to deliver better outcomes for the region. Please feel free to email via the department any comments, suggestions. We don't want this to be just a one-off. We want it to be a continuing dialogue. We're hopeful to do some further theme-based sessions over the year in the different groups, so the affordable housing and rough sleeping, environment, etc. And I just want to thank the departmental staff. They've done 2 of these this week. It's a huge effort. And so thanks so much, and in particular to Melanie, who supports the work of our partnership. Finally, if you haven't already done so, don't forget to go to the Pick My Project website and have a look and vote for those. Voting's now open, and public from the inner metro can vote on the inner metro ideas. So again, another way for you to have your say in shaping the region. And I'd now like to hand over to Minister D'Ambrosio, who's going to finish up for us.
Thanks very much, Tony, and hello to all of you. It's just been a wonderful night, and I really do want to express my deep appreciation for your faith in this process. And some of you, of course, were here last year, and you've come back, and many of you are new to this. But I actually am going to be not walking home, in fact, but I will be walking out of here on my way home, really having got a fantastic sense of not just the energy in this room, but the real eagerness to share your own individual thoughts, but also listen to others and share and discuss. And that's something that is so fundamentally important to our government in the way that we want to operate. We want to make sure that the decisions that we make are made to reflect and are made in reflection of the considerations of local communities, and that ultimately will resonate and resonate in a way that is the most meaningful to you in all of the priority areas that have been identified. So I thank you very much for going along with the journey with us tonight again. Tony, I do want to thank you as the chair of the partnership and every partnership member here tonight. You've done a wonderful job, all of you, because pulling together, being fine representatives of the broader community in this region has meant that evenings like tonight are so successful. And we certainly, as a government, look forward to the deliberations of the partnership after having received all of your feedback tonight. And even though perhaps not all of the issues that have been raised have been articulated here in a public sense on stage or through individuals reporting, every idea is equally valued and will go directly to the partnership for further consideration. And we look forward as a government to receiving that feedback in terms of the priorities again. Many of them resonate, of course, from last year's one, which means that you're all on the right track in terms of what's really the most important things for you. And I do want to make it also clear that as the coordinating minister, it'll be my responsibility to take those matters forward to all government ministers. So I do want to say on behalf of the other ministers here tonight and the broader government, we look forward to receiving that next round of advice and ensuring that we come back to you at the next opportunity to report on progress of those priorities. So thank you, all of you, tonight. And importantly, and I think, Tony, you may have mentioned the Pick My Project, which is absolutely fantastic. And I want to make it absolutely clear that every region will have success in projects being selected, so you're not competing against other regions, so please make sure you get in there and spread the word and vote on your priorities. Now, tonight, we're going to finish up with some entertainment, and what I'd like all of you to do, so that way they actually get the last word, is I want to introduce Young Voices of Melbourne Choir. They're coming out now, which is really terrific. And what I wanted to say is, can you please give them not just yet, because I want to mention the songs that they'll be singing. They'll be singing Sister, My Sister. And I think I need to say this. The words and music are by Sue Johnson. And Keep My Cool, words and music by Aluka. I'm not familiar with either of these, but that's because I live in a bit of a bubble. But others, I'm sure, don't live in a bubble like I do. But can you please give them a rousing, warm welcome, and thank you to all of you, and good night.
Slow this breath and lay to rest. you're looking so good. I'm trying to keep my cool, but you're looking so good. I'm trying to keep my cool, but you're looking so good. I'm trying to keep my cool, trying to keep my cool. My body's moving in a slightly awkward way. Words they tumble out, spoken too loud. Is this the way that a sane girl acts? Is this the way that a sane girl acts? Passing over me like I am blinded, getting inside myself like I am clouded, filling me up to my brim, making me think of nothing but him and nothing but him. I'm trying to keep my cool, but you're looking so good. I'm trying to keep my cool, but you're looking so good. I'm trying to keep my cool, but you're looking so good. I'm trying to keep my cool, 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 trying to keep my cool.
So thank you again to all of you for participating in tonight's assembly. Can I just remind you to collect all your personal belongings and leave your voting handsets on your table. Thank you.